Ladies,
Gentlemen,
people,
courting couples,
and all our single folk,
we've got something just for you.
Tours.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
How to live and cleave,
money,
disuse,
infidelity,
singles in the church,
and more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.
We say good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening to you.
All is well?
Well as all.
Glad to hear that. Welcome to Marriage Mentors, to all of our Sky family. And of course, we are discussing sex before marriage. This is part 2. And just to do a bit of recap, we shared a scenario last time with a couple, Carissa and Alex, I believe it was. And I just want to refresh our memories on that particular, because it was quite pivotal in the direction we took last time, which would help bring us up to speed to where we were in the last segment. So here goes, Carissa and Alex. This is Carissa talking. She said it was a frigid cold night in Michigan, and Alex and I had just left our warm seats at the local movie theater. We're both 17. Our movie was a romantic comedy that included some sensual moments. And we did a little bit of necking in the back of the theater. I knew better, but I pushed him into it. That was the first time anyone had ever been up my skirt, she said. It felt so nice. As a Christian, I've always been taught that sex before marriage is a sin. However, it wasn't until I experienced it firsthand that I truly understood the devastating consequences it can have on a relationship. Alex and I had been dating for a few months, and we started to feel a strong physical attraction toward each other. Despite our Christian beliefs, we fell to temptation that night. At first, it felt like the right thing to do. We were in love and we wanted to express that love physically. But soon after, things started to fall apart. Our relationship became more about physical intimacy than emotional connection. I cried my eyes out that first night because I knew how badly we both believed in waiting until marriage before having sex. Something changed inside both of us. Before, we had been very dedicated to our shared faith. We went to church often, studied the Bible in small groups. After we had sex, we both lost the desire, and it seemed like we just became like everyone else. It felt like Superman after being exposed to kryptonite. I felt hollow inside, just empty, like God was no longer with me. My communication with Alex became superficial, and we started to argue more often. I felt emotionally entangled with Alex, and it became harder to separate my feelings for him from our physical relationship. Eventually, we broke up, and all our long talks about future together stopped. My best friend became a shell of his former self. He mentioned it to a friend, and everyone at school found out. He had been known as a solid Christian guy who lived his faith, and now he was just ashamed of his own hypocrisy. God could forgive him, but he could not forgive himself. I still feel it was my fault. I tempted him too much in the way we women often do. I'd often rub against him with a knowing look and smile, sit on his lap, snuggle too tightly, and I'd kiss him passionately and send him sexy messages. I pressed in closely when we hugged, and finally nature took over and his body just couldn't say no anymore. The emotional pain was excruciating, and I realized that sex before marriage had ruined what could have been a beautiful and likely lifelong relationship. Instead, it became an ugly, dead, twisted relationship with no hope. It became sin itself. Looking back, I realized that I sinned knowingly, and I had been told for years in church that sexual immorality is a major sin. In 1 Corinthians 6:18-20, it states, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside of the body, but a sexually immoral person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, and you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. Right? Yeah, I think we stopped there. And I think she ended up by saying the blessings of virginity, purity, and chastity are also emphasized in the Bible. And she finished it off by saying, I felt so much remorse. I prayed, I repented, and I apologized to Alex, but it was never the same, and we broke it off altogether.
Sad.
Yes, it is sad, but that tends to be the case for many people. Not just young, but many people. Not just people in their teens like Carissa and Alex was. Yes, this is a recap, Jamil. But we're doing a part 2 this time, in case you just joined us. So what I was doing is just giving the scenario we used last time. So we looked at the guilt that comes with, especially she talked about it, the guilt that was there, ever present, how the relationship changed. It switched from a very fulfilling, stable relationship to now just being all about sex until they just ended it all together. And and you had some thoughts?
No, I just wanted you to ask the question.
All right.
Because I want to hear their responses.
Now, yes, we've covered that. But I want to ask, is there anything that should be sex related before marriage? I want to hear from you. Is there anything that should be sex related before marriage?
That should be.
Yes, that should be or should happen before marriage. So I'm asking our Sky family that question. Let me hear. Feel free to contact us. Send your messages via WhatsApp at 333-9950 or give us a quick call. 625-2759. That's 625-2759. Let me hear what you have to say. Jamil, what's your thoughts on it? Should anything sexually related happen before marriage? We've all heard sayings, quite a lot of sayings that fit into the school of thought that people are probably saying, that's a trick question. I just want to hear your thoughts. I'll listen, but I won't judge. I won't judge. There was a particular thought I had just a while ago. Oh, there are some schools of thought that let's say you before you buy a car, you should go and test drive it, right?
My God.
You have to know what you're buying.
You know, I just thought that you were going there. I knew that you were going there. You're just waiting for the opportunity to use that particular term. Test drive.
To test drive. And that's what some people do. They test drive. We have it's no good. Mrs. Mahon, why are you watching me like that?
I'm just listening to you.
Hello.
Yes, still is the way it is. If I didn't know what I didn't know before, my life will be better.
Yeah.
You understand? Because little Ingrid didn't know much, but big Ingrid know a lot now.
Yeah.
So nobody can play the fool with me. You understand? So the best thing is to wait and take your time.
Yeah, some people blood close to the skin, like Carissa there. Blood very, very close to the skin. All right. Jamelia is saying, but when you are young and inexperienced, very hard to stay away. Okay. Meaning, I just want to clarify what, based on the question, if there is anything that should happen, is there anything that should happen, anything sexual that should happen before marriage? So Singrid said, stay away. And you're saying, just to clarify what your answer is. Hi, Susanna. I read this book called The Missing Dimension in Sex. When I was almost 20, that book stated that you are not supposed to allow a man to as much as put a hickey on your neck outside of marriage. All right. Marcia and Arima, good evening to you. Does anybody hold the belief that one should test drive the car before you buy it?
That's Donna and London. Well, I was 18 or 19 when I met my husband before we were married. And how do you say? We were intimate, as they say, before we got married. So I didn't get married to him until I was about 21. So those things normally happen with younger folks who, as Lynden said, who blood near the skin. So that is what I'm standing for.
All right.
Just drive the car, now you're getting in trouble. You understand? It's now you're falling into problem if you're touching house.
Hi, yo, good evening to you. Which is true. Once it started to test drive the car, it means that you're driving. Which means that you're using the car before you own it, right? You're using the car before you own it. Which is trouble. Which is always trouble.
You think?
So like Carissa and Alex, we can say unanimously no. Right? But to the question...
For instance, since you stated that term, since you used the term, my toothache spread from this side to this side. Both sides now.
Both sides,
Plenty wisdom.
Plenty wisdom,
Especially when you come into marriage mentors.
Just get plenty wisdom.
No, you have to have plenty wisdom.
With me.
Especially with a question like that. Especially with a question like that.
There's a reason why. There is a reason why.
They know too.
Yes, they know. That's why I guess some people are reluctant to answer the question. But case in point, yes, there are some things that should be, quote unquote, very big air quotes, should happen pertaining to sex before marriage, and which is conversation, right? And conversation that are curtailed toward particular topics. This is not for every and anybody. This is a couple who's engaged and they're on the road toward getting married. Some people tend to have this kind of conversation casually between the opposite sex or whatever people do these days. But I will always advise against it. Having conversations like sexual preferences and stuff like that casually, because it always leads to trouble. Always.
So are you saying that it should not even be discussed, or it should only be discussed in the presence of a marriage counselor?
No, not necessarily in the presence of a marriage counselor, because you have to talk about sex and sexuality in your marriage. Don't wait until, when I say conversation.
In your marriage.
Yeah, it has to happen in marriage. So therefore, with the guidance of your counselor, who would begin to start those conversations, if we could put it that way. Because it's not just about talking about the act. That's not what the conversation would be. It's not about talking about the act of sex. It's about your past experiences and all of those things. One should have those conversations before marriage, because we talked about, when we were doing intimacy, right? When we talked about intimacy, we looked at that issue of particular expectations based on past experience, which begins to foretell. So therefore, if there is a common understanding of what experiences have been had, and the conversation, intelligent conversation comes up, and how much has that scripted the individually? Because a lot of the times, these are the things that might have someone's blood close to their skin, even worse, based on experience.
Yeah.
You have an appetite for it now, and you now have somebody who feeds
or even
that
if
appetite.
even if it is you have peers that normally discuss these things, because that is how I learn a lot.
And that's why I said it shouldn't happen. If there's no safe space for those things, that conversation to be had, without proper guidance. And I say, especially when you're talking about the act, the details of the act, what position, and all this kind of foolishness, why talk about that, whether in a group or with someone casually? Right? You catch my drift? So, according to Sonny San Fernando, you follow? Why have that conversation if you're not? Because what tends to happen, let's put that practically, because someone might be saying, well, Lynden, why not? Why, if you're saying, even in a group, why not? Because that's how some people learn. What are you learning? You're learning how to have sex, not so?
True.
But you're also learning what this person likes and what they don't like. And you're also checking in your own mind whether you're sexually compatible or not. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, true. It's true.
So that's why it's not safe to have that conversation, whether in a group, because you begin to earmark people one time. It happens when you see a quality that you like. And therefore, those things, your flesh attaches itself to those kinds of conversations. And therefore, it always leaves room. And those are some of the things that makes it harder for people. If you're around a very sexually heightened group, by all means, they're going to be a major driving force to your blood being close to your skin. Right? So that's why I would say it's not safe to have that conversation, whether in a group or one-on-one. That changes everything, how you view the person.
Yeah.
It's like what Jesus said. It's not just about doing the act, but what you begin, if you look upon someone, even in lust, because what that conversation does, it begins to paint a picture. Okay, well, this person prefers this and they prefer that, and all those kinds of things. So it creates images in one's mind as to what they like. And that in itself is tantalizing to someone else.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not safe to have that conversation in the first place. Don't test drive even in a conversation. So those things tend to lead down that pathway. All right. Seems like I'm stirring up some conversation here. All right. Hi, good night. The only thing that can and should take place between two people, such as a healthy and enjoyable courtship, which includes getting to know a lot about one another for a period of time to see where it goes from there. The intimacy before marriage should be avoided because there are spiritual consequences that sabotages both the relationship and the individuals themselves, which I agree with. I totally agree with you, Reina. So nothing sexual really concerning the act should happen. If you're heading towards marriage and you're being guided by a counselor, that should be included in your conversation, in your dialogue leading toward marriage. So yes, the only time that should happen, that's the only space I would recommend that it happens.
But Lynden and Adana, I know a couple. It was an elderly, when I really say elderly couple, it was a middle-aged couple. When they get married, the wife was dissatisfied. She said her husband was not pleasing her. And you know that marriage went downhill.
See?
She even turned around to tell me, she said, "Girl, I'm sorry, I did wait and I didn't test out this man before I go and marry this man." You understand? So she was completely dissatisfied.
No, but then it begs to the question, okay, this lady had experience, clearly had experience beforehand. So she had expectations, right? Not saying that some people, they become content with dissatisfaction. That's not what I'm talking about. Because intimacy is a learning curve. Let's be very clear about that. It's a learning curve. And his experience might be very different to hers. And clearly, they never had the conversation. Never. They never talked about it. Hi, Esther. Long time no here. But in a case like that, she was dissatisfied. They never talked about it. Never had conversations about intimacy. She complained to yourself. If it was someone you spoke to her, I think you said, personally. But I am almost certain she never really talked to him about it. And I say talk to him in terms of, let's figure out how we're going to get this done. Yeah. And that's what married couples should do. Just as you develop strategies, develop strategies. Develop strategies. Go to a therapist, something, talk to one another. If you can't talk to each other, talk to a therapist. Why are you smiling? What? It's like, I didn't know we was going to go on here this evening.
No. I am here. I'm just being entertained.
Entertained. Interesting. All right. So before we move on, let me just hear the follow-up from Singrid here. All right. Well, let's go ahead. So we started looking at some of the things or the benefits of why one should wait.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the things we started discussing last time before we got into the why not to do it. Some of the benefits and why not to do it. The benefits of waiting, it will establish sexual identity, and having that conversation and working with your partner inside of marriage gives you that benefit. So we looked at what are some of the things that happen beforehand with the Carissa and Alex scenario, how it changed their relationship. And we also looked at, I remember a couple telling me it feels so good to do it guilt-free now.
Yeah.
But that never really stopped the person. And I say stop the person, quench their particular appetite. Because a lot of the times people they were a lot of the times, not all the time, people tend to be very promiscuous outside, and monogamy becomes a bore. And that in itself can be a challenge. Why it's important to wait, not just so that you curb your appetite. It brings a measure of sanctity and purity to your marriage, which you want to offer before, you want to offer to your spouse and also offer before God. You don't test on new devices. You just buy them brand. True. I agree with you. you don't test new devices. You just buy it new, and you learn as you go along, right? You just learn as you go along.
Oh, no, Lynden. I don't know if they really. She used to talk to me a lot. We was close friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she ever they talked
to him about it.
If they had any topic about sex and all this sort of thing. So she wait long. She's still long before she get married too, eh? She's still long to get married. So she was dissatisfied. They start sleeping in separate bedroom and all kind of madness. They're still together, but they are in separate bedrooms. You understand? Because in her book, her husband is a waste of time. So
that bad boy.
That one is a really long story. It's a long story. From Lynden. Oh my God. Sometimes I just wonder if I marry on. So then the guy they never talk about the thing they never talk about. They never answer. So that is what all kind of thing. Marriage, you should have a way that you can talk, you can put it in and you talk and find out, everything. Everything is supposed to know about before marriage. That's the best thing.
You had a thought there. I see you
inhaling
you
wanted
to say something. And yes, there is a way. You should know everything before. You should, honestly, you should be able to have that.
Is it possible to really know every single thing before, though?
Maybe some minor details might slip the person, but
so
at
what
least
what if what they consider as minor might be a major thing to the other party?
I think what these are the things that the more you keep out, the more you try to hold back and not tell, in many cases tends to be the monster or the skeleton in the closet, because they turn out to be big surprises. It's like you marry this person and you never knew there was some CIA agent or some ex-op, and how would you feel to find out this person was some kind of mercenary or something? You married to them 15, 16 years into it, and you always thought that they were in some kind of finance business, but you didn't know what it was. This person is a mercenary.
Have a good
one
life.
Day,
bye.
one day, some secret room open up in the man's study, and all you seen is guns on the wall. And you never saw one sign of it. How would you feel? So therefore, the thing that should be, you should come to the point before you get married. Because I think many people leave too many things to chance. and go with their heart and not their brain, or go with their body parts and not their brain, excluding their brain. Think it through. We've always talked about being intelligent in your relationship. You still want to know, because I think a lot of the times these are the things that that says to us, or why many people feel, he was this way all the time and then he changed.
Mm-hmm.
You will always have a sense, unless this person exposes themselves.
Yeah.
And they have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get married to someone, you should know everything about them. Some people get married to someone and they don't know where they grew up. They don't know how they grew up. They don't know anything, no details about their family, nothing like that. You just opt and go and marry this stranger, essentially. You know some things about them, you're physically attracted to them, but other than that, you don't know anything about them. If they were abused as a child, you don't know how their childhood was, whether they had teachers that used to bully them in school, nothing like that. You know nothing about them when they were young, or how they grew up.
But the thing with that is, though, the person who would have experienced all these things don't really like to come out and fully talk about this until probably later on, 10, 20 years down the road into the marriage. Then when you say, well, the reason why I'm acting this way is because a whole decade ago, this, that, the other, the next happened.
Which in essence is reverse action, right? Therefore, we wait until trouble, fire on the mountain, as Ingrid says, then to begin to deal with these issues. It clearly says, one, that individual who has or had experiences that they probably never dealt with. Because if it's coming up later on as some outburst or negative trait in behavior, it says that there's work to be done. And why give your spouse that kind of experience of incompleteness in terms of self-work? Present yourself as someone who has it all together, because that tends to be the case. You present yourself as someone who has it all together and have not done your personal work. Now bring this into your marriage, because it's not just your own stuff. We always talk about marriage brings out sides of you, one that you never knew there, stuff that you hid away and kept in the back drawer, closet, that kind of thing. It will bring those things out. Marriage in itself, because you're now in close proximity with this person and you all will push each other's buttons. So therefore, this the time to begin to work on these things. Don't wait and hide things up and bottle this up and throw this behind your head, in the back of your mind somewhere. It's going to bring it out in marriage. So therefore, to say whether or not you're going to leave this because you don't find that that's my personal business. No, you're marrying someone, it's going to become our business. So therefore, it's only fair to lay all the cards on the table. When you say that, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Talk about your history, how you grew up, some of your most difficult, embarrassing situations and experiences. Share those things and become vulnerable with your spouse, so that when you cross that threshold, this person is not your enemy. You've both shared how you've lived, and you're both aware, okay, so this person can protect me. And I say protect me, okay, they know, all right, I don't feel my best in this kind of environment, and I can lean on your support.
Yeah.
Why hide it? And then your spouse is wondering, but why he acting so? Why is she acting so? And they have no clue. So they're now blindsided by this new response that they've never seen before, after probably so many years, because of something one hid from their spouse. So it's important to have the conversation whether you would have had some negative experience or not. But talk about it. Have those conversations. It's not necessary. In that case, it's not necessarily sex or sexual partners or anything like that. But have those conversations. Have those times where you could sit as a couple and talk out those things.
Just up and go and marry that Judas. You understand? When you marry that Judas, that is something else.
Yes, that was that too. We talked last week. Last time. Yes, marrying a Judas. No marry, no Judas. All right. That's why the best is two people who have never been involved before, like my cousin and his wife. Those two are still going strong today after 20 years. They got one son who is 18 years old, and my cousin married someone who is of Hindu beliefs as himself. Okay. So other people keep that belief. So other people keep that belief too. This is the way Jehovah God created it to be. Therefore, two virgins won't be comparing with anyone. They will learn how to get better at love making and sex in marriage. True. The principle is the same, you know. It doesn't matter where you apply it. It's just some religions have a polygamous look at marriage. We won't go into that. That's not where we're heading. All right. Also, I find it very Okay. All right. Also, I find it very disrespectful to...
This is someone else.
Yeah, someone else. I'm trying to keep it anonymous now.
Yeah.
I find it very disrespectful to your spouse when you don't seek counsel and vent to friends. Also, the only thing that cannot be satisfied is lust. And you shouldn't have lust in your marriage. If it was used, you do a complete factory reset. You're using the terminologies that are synonymous with a device. In this case, yes. And I like that you're using that because people never take the time, which is a concept we also talk about in marriage counseling, taking that time to reset yourself when coming out of a relationship. Some people just jump from one to the next, and they use a term that we use called rebounding, right? And never get the time or take the time to become single again, single in mind, in heart, and in body. That allows you to shed all that is old, your old habits, your old expectations. Some people just go with baggage. The moment you go into a new relationship and there's talk about what he used to do or what she used to do, do like Paul, shake the dust off your sandals, go your way. Go your way. Yeah.
Hey. Then how you going?
Doing quite good.
What you said and explained there, it is the politically correct thing to do. It is the correct thing. Now, hear the thing now, remember how life is, and when life's out of life, you realize that both parties, husband and wife, they have faults. There are people and things that open up themselves to the spouse. And, tell them some real intimate stuff, and sometimes I fall out that man. And that wall that you break down, that strip everything in your face. These are real things that happen. People people learn from these things, and the truth is that's wherever in your past you bury it, and you start to deal with it as you go along, because we are all humans. We all make mistakes, and sometimes even your spouses betray you when you be very intimate to disclose a lot of information. So it's not supposed to be that way, but it is that way. So sometimes sometimes as you go along, unfortunately, I'm using the word unfortunately, you deal with things as they pop up, yes? And I just being...
All right.
That's where I wanted to go.
Which is a valid point. Yeah. It is a valid point that yes, some spouses use that as a weapon later on. Well, why? We've got to ask ourselves why. Some people use it when they're losing an argument.
True.
It's to cover their own pride and or as a measure of self-preservation. Preservation in a very toxic sense, if we could look at it that way. So if that is the case, there is some deeper issues to look at there. If your spouse weaponizes your vulnerability against you, something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong, and that needs to be looked at. If your couple they're having difficulties, and the moment you bring up something, they weaponize your past against you, something is wrong. Clearly wrong. If wrong like a Right, next comment. I also know another couple, both virgins, who waited until marriage. She is Trini, he is from Europe, where they're both living for the past almost 27 years. They got one son as well.
Yes, that is something else. When you jump from one, you ain't even read yet and go on to the next one, and next relationship, guys jumping from the smoke into the fire. That's what I call that. You take your time to heal from the first one who went sour. You want to jump over into the next one. You understand? Jumping from the smoke into the fire. Fire in the mountain.
Radica, good evening to you. Good night to you all. Well, I did not just marry Judas alone. It was the Satan himself. Wow. Hell, hell, hell. I pass hell. Well, at least you learned. You learned. It was a learning experience. Pleasant night to you all. Locked on the Sky. I'm listening to the conversations about marriage, which is interesting. What I would like to know is there's nothing new under the sun in marriage. Marriage is a must. And afterwards, like the journey now start. Okay. Yes, I do understand what you're saying. I get you. Because it's a constant learning, a place of learning. You are learning your spouse, you're learning yourself. What you thought you knew about yourself, you're now being redefined constantly. All right. It's not a problem playing it. It's just I just wanted it a little more concise. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Wonderful topic this evening. Thank you for having it. My little take on the topic is that I believe sex before marriage has a lot. It depends on the view you're taking it from. Hear what I mean. We know that society would have a view, the masses would have their view, the biblical standpoint of it would have its view, the carnal view would also be a view, right? From the biblical standpoint, we know sex before marriage is basically a sin, and it's better to wait till they get married, and the marital bed is on the fire. On a carnal standpoint, blood close to the skin. You want to have that appetite to know what you're getting into, to know, okay, hey, if I'm for this, if I'm for that, if it is that this is what suits my sexual needs and desire, because we all have different desires, yeah? From the carnal standpoint too, it may come across as if that the only reason, okay, you're with this person is because, okay, the sex is good, it is satisfactory. Because we know that there are many people who are in relationships for many different reasons. Some people are only with somebody because the sex is good. Anyways, I would also say that education plays a very big role in the decision of two consenting adults who is engaged, ready to get married, making the decision whether to have sex or not in agreement with each other. Because I can speak from my personal experience. I was 24, 25 when I got married. And before I tied the knot and said I do, I was engaged in sexual activity with my husband before. Even prior to that, I was in a relationship before and I was active with the person, but we didn't work out. However, I will say do that now, having more spiritual understanding, even topics like these, listening to podcasts, etc., and getting more education.
Yeah.
I now come to realize that if I can go back in time and get an opportunity to make some changes, I would. One would be definitely waiting until I get married. Two would be doing more marital counseling before getting married and understanding the context of marriage, etc. Three, learning to understand my partner more, as opposed to, feeling certain things were rushed and just happen as it happened. Maybe two, my decisions might have been different, because I will be transparent here. And on here, there was a time, there was a topic you all had where the guy would have pregnant some woman by accident or something. So, and Mr. Mahon, when you were speaking that time, you mentioned something about, I believe it's a sin for a person to remarry if it is that the person that they would have been divorced from is not deceased or hasn't died. I would appreciate any correction if needed. And my transparency with this is that as a young person, married to my husband for 11 years, I've never married before. This is my first time being married. On the other hand, for my husband, this is his second marriage. And as I say, education plays a big role, because I believe that if maybe I had the education then, I honestly think that based on the spiritual aspect of things and having the education, maybe I wouldn't have been married to my husband. Just saying, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm having regrets or that's not how this is coming across. I'm just saying how the importance of education helps to impact and influence our decisions to some degree, right? And lastly, I just wanted to say though that with this information now, where okay, his former wife, she is not dead, she's still alive, they would have divorced, no children or anything prior, but now you're married to me. Is it now that I am living a sin? Is it now that, because I did not have that knowledge before, is it now that when I sometimes now have this information, I feel, okay, is it that when bad things happen, is it because I'm being cursed? Am I being punished for making such a decision? I really look forward for your take on this. And again, wonderful topic. Have a good evening.
No matter how much we run from this topic, it pops up. It pops up because I really love the question. I really, really do love it. One of the things that I always appreciate about this individual is how transparent she is, and questions that others wouldn't feel comfortable asking, she would ask on behalf of all the others. The next thing I want to make mention though, if she reminds me so much of a news reporter, because she said Mr. Mahon, I heard you mention. Correct me. So you need to answer a question, right?
No. The fact is, the Bible is quite cut and dry with these issues. Cut and dry in terms of what the preferences of the Lord are. But when it comes to where it has happened, and you know now after the fact, one, there is more damage to undo, and I say more damage to undo, where, and I'm answering this in the best of my ability, right? I'm not saying scripture says this. I'm doing like Paul, not the Lord, but I, right? I'm doing like Paul in this regard, where in a case like that, where you now have understanding, grace is sufficient. Grace covers you in this regard, where the Bible says, to him who knows to do right and does not do it, to him it is sin. In our ignorance, if we don't know, and we act, God gives grace. But if we know and we act, then the consequence that we find ourselves in, the Bible says, we will give, let me put it as the King James says, you will be beaten with many stripes. And this is not to frighten you or anybody else, but where we don't know, God gives grace. And in a world where it's so common in many instances, I'm not God, and I don't know what he will do in a case like that. But when it comes to principle, that I can give what the principle is and what God would prefer to happen, what he would like to happen. Where you don't know and it happens, then I would say grace covers you. I don't see, based on what I know the nature of God to be, him saying, well, because you did not know, or because you ended up in this situation, whether by ignorance or not, I damn you eternally to hell. I don't see that in the nature of God. But now, what I would ask in a case like this, because we've had discussions like that, and there's a particular ministry that was on the air up to recent times, late last year, dealing with this topic extensively. We even had one lady who was, because she wanted to marry someone else, she was praying for her husband, her divorced husband, to die. And she asked that question, which was quite funny at the time, but it was serious, because she wanted to move on with her life. Which comes to the point, it's very important that we take our times and choose wisely. And we don't take the vows that we take very lightly. I think if people consider that I'll have to stay with this person for the rest of my life and I cannot marry anybody else, they choose differently. If they know that from beforehand, they choose very differently. Because we live in a world now where the concepts float around that, yeah, I could just divorce this person and pick up a new one. If I don't like this car, just sell it and then buy a new one, like that. If it is, we treat with marriage like that, then many a times that's how we're going to do it. This one ain't working too well, I trade it in and I get a new one. Or just get rid of this one and I get a new one. It's not meant to work like that. God didn't design, one who authored marriage, who built marriage, didn't design it to work like that. So therefore, it makes sense. What frees us from the covenant is death. Because we say that, till death do us part. So therefore, with that understanding, it changes, must change, and it must tell how we go into it in the first place. So therefore, we would want to know, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person, I have to know who I'm getting into this deal with. Suppose we both live to be 300 years. Do you know what it is to live with somebody for 300 years who you just don't like? No, you want to like that person. Like my wife was telling me today, you just ever get fed up on me? We working together, we living together, we work in two different places together. We in each other's face all the time. You just ever get fed up of me? I said, no. I said, I like you.
The boy. Just for last week Thursday, when I stayed home. Yeah, not from radio, from the other job.
Oh.
I stayed home because I really wasn't feeling well. And I fell asleep. And he was calling and calling and calling nonstop. So as I turned, you call again. We said, yeah, we're going out with you. I told her to come home, so something happened. So yeah. And I am there thinking, okay, well, he got a little break. He feeling good. He all right. He good to go. No.
No, I checking up on you. I want to make sure you're okay.
Put the camera right in this spot here in your house.
Just to make sure you're all right. I want to make sure, okay, you ain't feeling too good. Suppose you fall along the stairs. Suppose this. All kind of, no, it's not that you're being paranoid, but you're concerned. When you have someone around you all the time that you actually like being in their space. And that's how it should be. You want to because people ask us that all the time. How is it that you all spend so much time together and all you're not fed up of each other? Because we're not building like that. We're not building with the concept that, oh God, I can't be in she's face. And I hear so many people talk like that, even relatives. I can't be in this person's face all the time now. I need my space. And that's how some people build, which is not, if you're building like that, then why? And it's not to say that you don't have your alone time or you don't have your personal space. No, it's not that. It doesn't devoid the fact that you still continue to do things that you liked personally and build who you are individually. In my prayer time, I have my own time. She has her own time. And we have time where we pray together. And we spend individual time, yes. But I like spending time with my wife. That's just me. Apart from that, we build that way. So we're beyond just, oh God, I need my own space so much that I need to get away from her. No. Build differently. All right, that's so true. If I knew that staying with this person till I die before getting married, I wouldn't have gotten married. Now with the knowledge and the reality of marriage, things isn't what I thought marriage is. We learn. It's hard. It's stressful due to the many, many, many factors we're at a bridge, even though years has passed. Children is here sleeping in separate rooms feels more peaceful than sleeping on the same bed. Thanks for your feedback. You see, these are things that we have to build. We have to build. There was just to share some of our personal experience. I think 2 times we did not sleep on the same bed. 1 for fasting, and 2, the bed was uncomfortable for my back. And one of the things we had to do was switch sides. There was her side and my side. And in switching sides, I found out, wait, I could sleep on the bed.
And for me, it doesn't matter which side. Once it's sleep time, I sleep in.
Because at one point, what I did was bring an extra mattress in the room and slept on the ground next to the bed. And we'd hold hands and all kind of thing and sleep. We'll hold hands and sleep. But what I had to do was just switch sides of the bed. So I think how we build is very important. Because the moment we leave the door open for that to happen, the Bible gives us a very simple thing, but it's so effective. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And it may not be literal, and I say literal, in terms of, okay, you're married, you get upset in the morning and you want to ensure that you get this thing resolved before the day is over, before the sun goes down. So what if you have a falling out in the night? What happens? Is it that you have more time to work with when the sun goes down the following day? No, it's actually the concept that you want to resolve it as soon as possible. It may have to be where your emotions quell, but you don't want to leave it to linger. You don't want to leave issues, because once you open the door to the practice, we have a falling out, I go in and sleep in this next room because. And I remember giving a couple some advice with that some time ago. They were looking for an apartment, and we asked, okay, what are you going to do with the second room? Mm-hmm. How are you going to use it? Is it going to be, if you're having a guest room, how are you going to use that guest room? Because the moment you have an argument, that guest room becomes your other room, your other marriage room, right? Where he sleeps one way, she sleeps one way. And you have to make that covenant that is not going to happen. You have to make that covenant like we did. We made that covenant. And yes, the bed was uncomfortable. I moved from the second room and I put a mattress next to my bed where we could be close together. And I remember at one point she complained and she said, "You're sleeping on the next bed." I said, "Well, come and lie down on the floor with me." Come and lie down on the floor with me. But she wasn't too keen on lying down on the floor. It's like, why have a bed and you're on the floor? So we just switch sides.
No, my only issue with that mattress is it don't allow me to get up when I'm supposed to get up.
It's too comfortable.
Yeah, I don't like that. Being honest.
Yeah, that one is comfortable. Eh? I would get some. That mattress was really comfortable. Wow. Yes, let's get some more comments here. All right.
You can finish that last one.
Didn't I? Okay, let me go back. Okay, anytime today, what's up? What are you doing? All right. She says, I want space too. I want to live for me now. This marriage thing making me feel tied down to a point. And
so many people say that.
No, that is an interesting perspective. Those are the things we want to ask ourselves. I think we can use your experience for many young people as well. If you feel as though marriage is going to tie you down, maybe it's not the time to do it yet, right? If you're married and you are feeling tied down, maybe you need to re-engineer how things operate in your marriage. This is a good point now to seek guidance and counsel, because one, perspectives need to change, because in this case, once you get married, you're no longer living for yourself. Because the Bible says your desire is toward your husband and vice versa. Yeah, that's how Paul described it. Your desire is toward your spouse. So therefore, it's not toward me, because you build yourself now to bring that value back to your relationship. Your first place, as we talked about, of ministry is your marriage. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah.
Do like Anna did.
No.
Right? So your first place of ministry is your marriage. So therefore, the things that you do has to benefit your marriage. If you're feeling tied down, then it's about shifting one's thinking and how you feel about the value that you bring to your marriage. A lot of the times people feel that way because they feel dissatisfied in the marriage. And once things are re-engineered correctly, so that you begin to see, one, the value that you bring to the marriage, and getting both you and your spouse to work as a team, it will bring that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that you need. Therefore, you wouldn't feel as though your marriage is tying you down, but it's now empowering you, right? So at this juncture, I honestly would recommend some re-engineering. Re-engineering of marriage. All right. Yeah, Banton says, I'm married and I'm learning every day.
Every day.
Every day. Mommy Denise, good evening to you. The beauty about Jesus is that through him, we get a chance to start over, even if you have been with someone outside of marriage. The important thing is to learn from it. Truly repent, and this time wait until you get married, even if you may have children outside of marriage already. Yeah. Add to my previous comment, which was courtship and consequences, sabotaging and stuff like that. The Bible says that God is the perfect matchmaker. He knows what and who is suitable for each other. In other words, people must pray and seek God for a suitable partner. The way they would not need to do anything out of the way, such as a test drive. True. I know people who have been divinely connected by God, so it's possible. Yes, it is possible. It is very much possible. All right. I can relate. I never got tired of being in my deceased husband's presence. Yeah. You don't have to get tired. I think people, a lot of the times, that tends to happen when your heart is still outside, mm-hmm. and you're not seeing or getting that sense. Your heart isn't in it to see the fulfillment. A lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times, your heart is still outside. Some people, like I've seen some couples where the husband, he still want to line with the boys all the time, and he's not, his head is not in the game, if we could do it that way. And therefore his priorities are mixed up, but he wants a wife, but he's not doing the needful, not spending the time. He wants to spend more time either playing game or going out with the boys and doing what he used to do before. Life changes when you get married, and therefore, for it to be successful, life in itself has to change and become relevant to where you are. And it should begin to happen long before you get married. Some people wait until and try to do this sudden change. You become a husband before you get married. If you understand what I mean, your habits change. You develop husband habits and wife habits before you get married. All right. When your spouse divulges something close to their heart because of some sort of trust, some confidence was developed. So to weaponize the information can cause chaos in a marriage. True. You become guests.
Yeah.
I see when you go through a bad marriage. Oh God, that is hell and back, that do be easy, For me, it is one to fall in love again, but then like it is just habit like it is just like on the back burner then. You understand what I mean? You understand? When you go through a bad marriage, hell and back you falling. Like it doesn't want to fall in love again. Honestly. Done. I will do all this marriage stuff before I could get married. At the time I was going to get married, I would not get married. You understand? I feel it, sometimes you wish you could turn back the clock. I wish I could have turned back the clock in my life. If I would know about so many things I had to learn in marriage, I would not get married at the time I was going to get married. What slave? Imagine you marry somebody and you have to stay with that person until, oh God. You understand? If you want to get yourself involved in a next relationship, you can't do it because you're married. So that is something else, You understand?
Yes, I totally understand.
It's not easy. This marriage is not easy. It's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work too, You understand? And when you see it have no love in it, it isn't be a marriage neither. Honestly. You understand? There's no love like it when you love and love one should even know. That is be something else. That is be something else. I wish I could have turned back.
Many people wish they could turn back the clock. And that's why marriage education is so important. And why counseling is so important. Too many couples I see taking nuptials, taking vows, and they're unprepared. They decide, well, counseling is something we could skip, yes, because they're really going to do anything. No, it is valuable. It is very valuable to do that. It is in your best interest to find a very practical counselor and work with them. Don't go just a month before and hope that, no, you need a year. You need at least 6 months to a year, nothing less than 6 months. And be dedicated to going as often as the counselor says you need to come. Not once a month, because 6 sessions is not going to do it either. You're lying to yourself if you try that. Shut. No, you need to work through issues. And in order for you to work through issues, ask any couple that would have taken the time, done their counseling sessions. They would tell you they're better off for it because the things that they learned inside of those sessions, they would never have traded it for anything else. There are 2 marriage counselors. They do a marriage tune-up, I think, every year. We're quite familiar with the program here. Married to an Angel, that's Dr. Stephen and Reverend Lorna Mendoza. Very, very good job. They do a retreat with married couples ever so often, and that they call a marriage tune-up. I'd recommend that for couples. You're going through a tough time, do that. And it's also important for couples to take that time and work through whether you're doing a tune-up as a workshop or you're taking that time as a couple, whether it's a vacation or whatever it is, away. If you have children, take a few days away from the children and spend some time. Have the conversations that you need to have, if you could get someone to babysit, to look after the children for a couple of days, and take that time to work on yourselves ever so often to ensure, because at the end of the day, children grow up and they go their way. What are you left with? You have to have something that's going to take you beyond that, Marriage isn't just for children, it's for both of you. It was given for purpose, and you both have a purpose to fulfill. A lot of people don't even think that their marriage has a purpose. If you're thinking about those things before you get married, then you would reconsider even getting into it in the first place. Am I up for this task that I have to work with this person on the will of the Lord? Think about it. Think about it. It's very important. All right. The way things are going, we have a comment here. The way things are going in this time we're living in, I don't want to ever date someone who is bisexual and he hides that from me. I know someone who married someone like that and she divorced him. Yeah, he's trying out things. He's trying to walk on both sides of the fence. That is problematic. All right. What if I want to try counseling and the other person doesn't? My husband has the attitude that our life or marriage is private. Involving a third party means involving people in his personal private space. I want to work on myself and I want to improve me. Help. Look at it like this. There are some issues that you can work on for yourself. Let's take, for instance, your car. Someone who knows about cars, we'd never say, all right, well, my car is my private business and you have a problem and the car is malfunctioning and you don't take it to the mechanic, right? It isn't his skill set. So therefore, I'd recommend you take it to someone who has the skill set to help him see about it, to get his car back on the road. There's some people God has graced with the gift and the ability, the skill to work on marriages. They have the tools. Because, I could change the oil in my car, but I don't have the time and the tools. So I go to my mechanic, right? I might know how to do it, but I don't have the time and the tools. When it's time to align my car, I don't know. One, I don't know how to. I've tried it already with Daddy to do it manually, but we just don't have the tools.
So okay. This is for the party that doesn't want to go for counseling, right? So what about the one that is interested in working on themselves?
Right. So in this case, it's not just about working on themselves.
Because if the other one doesn't want to go, is it possible to work on you and then your change would influence the other person and then you work together afterwards?
That can work only so far. Marriage is meant that both parties work together. And where this, because what I am almost certain of, it's not just one party that might be off. Let's take, for instance, alignment. A lot of the times, if we use alignment in our cars, You ever drive in your car and you have to keep pulling the steering to keep it straight? Your tire's good, but if you let go the steering while driving on the highway, for those of you that drive, it somehow veers to the left or to the right. Right? And the thing is, your tires would begin to cut. So even if you change the tire, the issue of alignment is still there. So self-work is like changing the tire that is going bad, but you don't correct the core issue before changing the tire.
Okay, so what's going to happen in a case like that where you try all how to convince your spouse to go to counseling with you because the strain now is probably they're not feeling it so much, but you are. So you are pushing for the counseling. The person does not believe in counseling. What do? Do you just stay there and deteriorate?
It's not about staying there and deteriorating. You have to convince this person.
How that's the thing.
How much counseling is necessary. We'll come back to that point. We have a call on the line. Hello, good evening.
Hello, Brother Lynden.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Adana.
Good evening.
How are you all doing?
We're doing quite good.
Okay, this is Hyson. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I just got on the radio and I heard you all talking about, counseling for marriage. Right? You say, 6 months or a year, you're student or you must be counseling. But when I think about years ago, people never used to get counseling during a marriage. So I want to know, I know a lot of people years, they went through, they married and they married work. It did work. Some people, they took the beating. You could say, the wives took the beating because they never really had counseling. They don't want to leave their husband. So you feel if they had counseling, they will have, wouldn't have, might have walked out of that because I know people, as I say again, people married and they never get counseling, but the marriage works. But I know a lot of people too, they take a lot of beating from their husband or their wife, during that marriage. So I want to know if they did take counseling, they might have they wouldn't have take, they wouldn't have taken, verbal ability and half words and say, if they had counseling, they will have walked out that marriage.
I don't think it would have been a case where they would have just walked out the marriage. What I think would happen, because it's not just her learning to stand up for herself, it would have been him learning how to treat his wife better. So therefore, what we're talking about, that alignment comes into play where he is not trying to exercise his muscles on his wife, but he's now creating an environment knowing what his responsibility is as a husband, because that's what counseling is supposed to do. Give both parties the tools that helps them to function successfully. Because a lot of the times, long time, when we see marriages like that, they didn't have counseling. It doesn't mean that they didn't have problems,
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
if they did it, they suffered through some serious stuff. Horning, licks, all kind of different things. And she sat there and took it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I want to know if if they have counseling, because like nowadays, if you're getting counseling, right, and if you go to any little tough family house work, they just walking out. They just I ready to go. I'm not taking that.
Nah, counseling is meant to do that. In a case where he decides, well, despite the counseling, he has the information and he's abusing her, then a counselor will advise, okay, for preservation of life and sanity and safety, disconnect yourself from this person. In all good wisdom, yes, a counselor will say that. But that is going beyond the point of him saying, well, I know how I'm supposed to treat my wife and I go ahead and ill-treat her anyway. That's in a case like that.
Yeah, because long ago people, they married and they never get counseling and just stick it out.
They stick it out, but it's what they're sticking out.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nowadays counseling is very important because I think everybody, independent, or they have their own career and things, and they're not standing any, not standing any nonsense. So that's my intake. So I just went on the radio, so let me just put in that input because, when I got married, I didn't get any counseling. But thank God I had a quiet girl.
As we used to say, you get you by the skin of your teeth.
I get through it. I know. I saw, I lived my head.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was hard for many, many, many people.
True.
Yeah, you'll continue doing the good work.
Will do, definitely.
Got up about what time I got up? I got up after 6, so I ain't waiting until about 11 o'clock.
All right. You're here with us. All right. Thank you so much. Love you too. Bye-bye. Which is quite true. And what she touched on there is actually demystifying the notion that counseling only points fingers at one side. It's not about pointing fingers anyway, especially when you do counseling, marriage counseling especially. What it's meant to do, of course, what will surface is the negative influences on your marriage, whether it's contributed by one or both parties. But the thing is, what you want to do, it's giving you the tools to bring your relationship, your marriage into a state of balance and functionality. And just like if you were going to a counselor for your own issues, you're single and you're going to a counselor for your own issues, yes, you see your own habits. You see your bad habits that might contribute to where your life is at. But that doesn't mean you stop. That doesn't mean, well, because who else are you going to complain to? At this point now, because you're in it now for the betterment of your life. So when it comes to your marriage, you're in it for the betterment of your marriage. So you can't say, well, I'm not going because I prefer to preserve myself. No, this is a place where you now have to place the marriage at a higher priority than your own personal pride. And many people don't want to go and hear, well, what I did to contribute to where we are. Go and hear it, because clearly you didn't tell yourself it. Yeah. Go hear it because sometimes hearing it in a different way opens up our minds. Yeah. And then you realize, hey, I've been contributing. I've actually soured my marriage because I was acting this way. I was talking this way. I was doing things this way, something like that. But the counselor isn't there to beat you over your head with it. It's not what would happen if you're having an argument in your own marriage where something is weaponized against you. A counselor would allow you to look at some of the things that are challenging. And it's in that conversation, they're actually there to mediate and give advice, give wisdom, give exercises that allow you to discover it for yourself. So they're not going, yes, that's why it's you that'll be doing that to the woman. No, it's not. If any counselor doing all of that, then I might say to stop it. They're not supposed to be saying, but you doing the woman, or you doing the man that. That's not a counselor's job. Their job is not to ball up behind you and say, well, that is what you're doing. Their duty is to allow you to come to a place of sight. Okay, this is unhealthy for my marriage, and therefore I'm giving it up. I'm going to adopt this habit because this is what's going to get me where I need to get to. Right? How did we get here? We started talking about sex before marriage. We reached counseling. Right? But I do get where what you're talking about. In terms of you might want to go and the other party does not want to go to counseling. This is where your personal influence and conversation comes in, because it matters. You have to leverage what's important to him in this case. Because what's at stake? You have to consider what's at stake. Because honestly, using an excuse like that it's private and all of that good stuff, it's a flimsy excuse. So what does that mean? The marriage must suffer in silence, in private, and look good on the outside? No, it shouldn't. There's children involved, so therefore, in a case like this, what are they seeing? Because they're going to see it,
Mm-hmm.
They're going to see that
and repeat.
Exactly. What you mirror before them, what you display before them, they're going to now be comfortable doing that in the future. So things falling apart in their marriage, they'll be okay sleeping in separate rooms. That's just the fact. So asking him a question, is this what you'd like to see your children doing? That you're looking from over yonder and seeing your children doing this, and you cannot say to them, okay, I don't want this for all you. Right? These are the conversations that needs to be had. Because that's the thing you need to leverage. Is this the example we're going to give them? Because it's important that you show them what is right. Maybe some parents might say, well, my children had to grow up and learn things, make their own mistakes. No, that's stupid. Save them from some of the mistakes, as many as you could, by being an example before them. It's wicked to your children to say, well, they let them suffer through some of the things I went through. That's wicked. Then Jesus should not have died on the cross for us. We should have just suffered the consequences of whatever our sins were. And therefore, because of that, and you're the wife in this instance. Use your grace to have this conversation. It's not a conversation that needs to be had stern. It needs tact and a soft touch to appeal to his wiser nature, because he has to use wisdom in order for him to go with an open heart and an open mind, and not just do it because if he goes in, he'll go in with a closed mind and expect a negative outcome, which presupposes how he's going to respond. So he'll just be quiet and waiting for the counselor and you to tag team on him, if that is the case. Yeah. And you don't want that. You want him to go with an open mind. Let's go to Bill because the children need this example. We need this. This isn't what we got married for. We didn't get married to have a sour relationship. We didn't get married to have a contentious home. We got married for safety. We got married for comfort. We got married for purpose. We got married for blessing and not cursing. We got married for love. So it's a good reminder as to why. Appeal to his wiser self. Yeah. Have that gentle, soft, grace-filled conversation. All right. Someone is asking who is divorced and come to know the truth that he or she is still spiritually married. in the eyes of God, but this person wants to remarry and is hoping for his or her ex-spouse to die. Yeah, that's satanic. If you're hoping that they die, you're something wrong with you. That's not right. That's wicked. No hope for nobody. You would like them to, because if they could do the same thing on you, yeah, no hope for nobody to die because you want to remarry and fulfill your fleshly desires. No. Yeah, that's just wrong. So we have just about 23 minutes to go before the top of the hour, and I want to get through some of the let's jump ahead to the last part because we want to finish off this topic today. I don't have a part 3. So let's jump ahead to the last part. Right. So sex before marriage and any other comments and questions that come along, we'll answer them as go along. Okay. So the first one, loss of interest. Partners might lose interest, not might, but that's a great possibility in each other and grow extremely comfortable. Yeah. Lose interest and grow comfortable in losing interest. And therefore seek the thrill elsewhere. This will kill the attraction and make partners stray away from each other. They might want to move out on the lookout for further adventure and other excitement because of opening the door outside of a covenant. Yeah? Part 2.
Mm-hmm. Fear of pregnancy. There could be a constant fear of pregnancy, and this can be troublesome because without a legal bond, a lot of countries do not allow abortion. Mm-hmm. There can be a lot of chaos in the relationship and other aspects of life
if a baby comes along. Mm-hmm. So abortion, let's be biblical, don't go killing babies. Many people have the belief and support, it's my body and my decision, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. All that woman power thing that people tend to do. I go in with straight, good old biblical principle. Not being a fascist or whatever people call it. Whenever you get principled, this is just what God said. The one who created you, me, whether we have different beliefs or not, has come down to the hardcore facts. You did the thing, you get pregnant. Part of the math there is 1 and 1 will make 2. So when 2 comes along, in this case, the baby, why try to do a subtraction? That's an aberration to mathematics. Why try to turn the plus sign into a negative sign? 2 wrongs, in this case, makes a right. Because it was 2 people doing the wrong thing, and negative and a negative does make a positive. Good. So therefore, it will always add up. Whether 1 plus 1 or minus 1 plus minus 1 will always make another one, okay?
So 3.
Just now, before we continue, we have a call. Hello, good evening. Hi. Hi.
I could not miss this topic. I just want to say that I had sex before marriage because I was very young and my husband had experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not have kids at the same time. Maybe a year or something. And then I started. But then he had people outside there. And I was a young person. And I said, he did not. So it is a good topic that you all carry on. And I just want to say that.
Glad that you appreciate it.
Yes. A lot. Every topic that you all bring on, I listen very carefully.
And I thank you also for sharing your experience.
And it did not stop there, you know. It continued.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to hold on because I start having kids one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I hold on.
Okay.
In the marriage.
Until. Mm-hmm.
Right now. As you all know.
Yeah.
I love you both.
Love you too.
And thanks for all the topics.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, next point. We'll come back to the
fear of STDs.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has multiple partners, one of the reasons why physical intimacy before marriage could be disadvantageous is because there is a fear of sexually transmitted diseases. There are more chances of adultery in relationships, and this can be scary to the other partner.
Right. So when we hear the fear of STDs, I want you to hear the possibility of STDs. Mm-hmm. Just like there's the possibility of a child, there's also the possibility of this, right? Next point, lack of focus on other aspects of life, which we saw in the scenario with Carissa and Alex. Mm-hmm. One of the problems and dangers of premarital relationships is, and this is sex in premarital relationships, is that people can be so focused or over interested in that part of the relationship that they forget to balance the other aspects of their life. That's something that shifted. That clearly happened. It becomes all about sex. Everything is that. So you damage the fabric of your relationship when you include that beforehand. Yeah. Next point.
Fear of breakup.
Mm-hmm.
There's a constant fear of breakup or breaking up in a relationship before tying the knot, and the sex before marriage can worsen the situation because after being so connected to the partner, both emotionally and physically, it will be devastating to sever the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're trying now, when it was so frequent and everything mm-hmm. was hunky-dory and normal, and you're saying, all right, let's try to get everything right now. Let's not have sex and do the right thing and get married. Wait until we get married, right? Then there is that fear of the relationship breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Single parent.
Consequences of premarital intimacy can be accidental pregnancy and child abandonment, mm-hmm. where one partner could have all the stress of single parenting. Pregnancy can be a huge stress for unmarried couples, and it can cause severe damage to the relationship if there is no legality in the relationship.
That's serious.
Mm-hmm.
That is very serious. Next point.
Hurting religious sentiments.
Mm-hmm.
If either of the partners belong to a religious setup that does not favor marital sex, mm-hmm. it can hurt the sentiments of the family and society. Mm-hmm. So it can be difficult for people around either or both of you to accept the relationship.
So mm-hmm. apart from the societal ridicule, there is breaking of God's laws, because mm-hmm. that's what we live by. We're talking to mainly a Christian audience, and therefore the principles also that we share are from biblically based. So therefore, and most religions tend to validate the same principle. right? Thereby, you break your moral and faith-based values that you're given. So to say you hurt religious sentiments is breaking law. You're breaking or violating principles. That's essentially what you're doing when you go and, because this is actually meant for tool inside of marriage. So to use it outside is like using a screwdriver as a hammer, right? Using tools in the wrong context. This tool, sex, is not meant for outside of marriage. It's meant for inside of marriage. It was designed for that. So to use it outside is an abuse of the tool, right? Next point.
Lack of maturity. There can be a lack of maturity at a young age, and the decision of premarital sex can negatively impact the lives of both partners if they don't have enough knowledge about it. Further, it can also deviate them from other aspects of their life.
Especially if pregnancy happens. Especially you have a child at a young age. Ask any parent to any individual who had a child at a very young age, how did their education go? How did the child impact the course of their life? How did it change them? Did they get to enjoy the rest of their childhood, or did it feel as though their childhood stopped and adulthood was forced upon them? Ask them if these things happened. So it changes the course of your maturity, and now flings you into parenthood, and you still trying to understand your own stage and development, and you're trying now to parent this little one on top of the possible reprimanding or look down that comes with pregnancy or some kind of disease, or even the act, whether it be in your church community because you violated the standards and all of those kinds of things that comes with it. Yeah. We have another call. Hello. Okay, lost that one. Next point, moments of guilt. Yeah. Establishing a sexual relationship is put on a high pedestal because of the emotional investment involved. And considering this is still not acceptable, an acceptable norm in modern society, there can be moments of guilt thinking about whether or not this is the right decision. So just don't do it. A less understanding partner, there could be chances that although sex could seem great, your partner is not supportive or understanding. This can lead to intimacy with your partner from a side, while your partner might not be contributing to that level. So therefore, you might be more interested in it because your blood closer to your skin than the other person. And therefore, they're just not into it as you are. So therefore, what is actually going to see is that the connection just isn't there.
Yeah.
And you would feel as though you'd feel unfulfilled, dissatisfied, and all of those things that go along with it, on top of the guilt and the possibility of becoming a single parent. This is why you see some relationships now where we develop the term child father, child mother, simply because there was no real connection, or the real connection was negated for a moment of feeling nice.
Yeah.
Next point.
Right. Impact on self-esteem. Engaging in premarital sex can have a profound impact on self-esteem, particularly if the experience is negative or doesn't align with one's expectations. Feelings of guilt, shame, or regret can weigh heavily on self-esteem and self-worth, affecting how an individual perceives themselves. Negative outcomes might lead to questioning personal choices and body image, impacting their overall confidence.
Is that a lie?
No.
That's quite true. We see that all the time. All the time. Right? Next point, pressure to continue.
Once a sexual relationship begins, there can be an unspoken pressure to continue it. The pressure might arise from the emotional connection formed, the expectation of ongoing physical intimacy, or even from societal norms. Such pressure can make it challenging for individuals to express their changing feelings or desires, as they may fear disappointing or hurting their partner.
Right. Then, now, I want you to see all of these points lying on top of one another. And don't see them individual as this might happen, that no. Actually compile them. Right? Compile all the points one on top of the other. And finally, emotional attachment. Engaging in sexual activity can create a strong emotional attachment, potentially clouding judgment and also decision making, because all that's on your mind is So this attachment can lead to intensified feelings of love, in inverted commas, and closeness, making it difficult to assess the relation's compatibility objectively. So therefore, you're not thinking straight. All you're thinking about is that. So it's not making sense. The person doing stupidness, but it's, as the person was saying just now, you stay together because the sex great. The relationship, Stevie Wonder could see it. Ray Charles could see it. The late Mr. Santa Cruz could have seen it. But you are your two functioning eyes and still can't see it because the sex is good. So those are the things we want to ensure that we're not falling into those traps, because it can lead to very dangerous grounds. So, as we said, just stay away. Just don't do it. As hard as it might be, just don't do it. Yeah? A few more minutes before the top of the hour. We have a couple comments that we want to get through. At this time, Mr. Mahon, there is silence, no morning. This is with the convincing to go to counseling. No morning, no good morning, no good evening, sleeping in separate rooms, little to no communication due to this. Loss of interest is stepping in, feeling annoyed, gets angry when the husband walks into the room. If I walk into a room, he walks out. Yes, the children sees, they ask questions. Of course they will ask. The children will know you're not looking happy, true. Not sure if I'm unhappy or frustrated. It will be both. It will be both. And if we're at this place, does it make sense fighting to keep something alive that isn't moving towards, that is moving towards emptiness and hopelessness? All right, great. Please do. Please do. Because it's important. It's a critical stage, but it's not unfixable. Yeah, it's not unfixable. Yeah. I'll send you some info, yeah, to contact us. But it's not unfixable. All right, we have some voice notes here.
Good night, Mr. and Mrs. Mohan. I would say a divorcee who doesn't know that he or she is still spiritually married in the eyes of God, and he or she remarries, and they didn't know, well, okay, they didn't know. But to know you know the truth and you're wishing your spouse to die so you can remarry, that doesn't make sense. It's better you didn't know the truth at all. Also, Mr. Mohan, a few years back, I don't know if it's on this radio station or another gospel station, a woman called in and she is married to a divorcee, have kids with him. And then after coming to know Jesus, she come to know, well, he's still spiritually married in the eyes of God to his first wife, and she divorced him. I was so stunned. I told myself if it was me and I was married to this man, have kids with him, and then come to know the truth after, I wouldn't divorce him. him because I didn't know the truth at the time. Unless if Jehovah God say, well, yes, I have to divorce him. Well, then I'll do so. Since I was a teenager, I always had the fear of having children outside of marriage, and STD and STI. Contracting that, I was always afraid of that, so stayed away.
Yeah. All right. Why is WhatsApp sticking? Anytime today, WhatsApp. All right, there we go. Anytime today. There we go. Last night, guys, boss topic, a toxic relationship with good sex. Yeah. And we see a lot of that, you know. That is so true. We see too many times that happens. Where it's very, very toxic. But many times we may not know what happens behind closed doors. We see the toxicity, but then, and you wonder, why? Why them together? Then you realize after, oh, okay. You realize babies coming, more babies coming. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That's why that's happening. It's like, why she man boxing out she eyelids? She looking like a raccoon and she's still going back. Why? Why?
This is how we wrap up marriage.
Gary Bernard says, everything we do against God's law is trouble with a capital T. Do like Joseph and run. Yeah? Don't break God's laws. Yeah. Do your best to follow them to the T so that you wouldn't have the capital T in trouble.
Indeed.
Yeah? Yeah. He says it is covered with good sex, but great sex comes after marriage. True. Yeah, get married and you find out what great sex is like.
This is 1 minute to the top of the hour of 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and we want to say thank you so much for staying with us and being so participative in this topic. I think it was needed because it also pointed to and divorce in marriage was actually one of the topics. Yes, we've been running from it for a while because of how cut and dry it is. But the truth is the truth, right? And I think a lot of people would want to understand it. So especially for the ones heading into marriage, they want to know, and we'd want to have you know before you get into it. Because like many who wish they could turn back the hands of time to undo stuff that happened, it's better to know beforehand. For my wife and I, we wish we knew some things before. It may not be concerning some of those things. And yes, there are some things that we wish we could turn back the hands of time with as well. But if we knew now what we knew when we were younger, we would have made different decisions. I might have married her sooner. It's just today we are talking about that. But what we've resolved is that, yes, the decisions that we have made, we can't undo them. And we won't be the people that we are now if those things did not happen. And therefore, we can resolve everything and make the best of life going forward. We don't need to have regrets. We've turned those into lessons, and it shapes our life going forward. And I recommend that to everyone else. Yes, mistakes were made, but they now become lessons. There's no need to be, quote unquote, ashamed of them. Yes, you wish you hadn't done it. You weren't as smart as you were now, but you want to ensure that going forward, you do things differently. It became lessons, and it now guides your life to a point that you know so much better. It made you wiser. It made you smarter. It made you a whole new person. Yes, there are consequences you might have to live with, and you thank God for it. But they're reminders that says, hey, I have scars, but I've learned to make better decisions. And you can encourage others. Yeah. Oh, this is a really interesting question. Someone said, hi, Brother Lynden. When you mentioned STD, how many people took the test before they got married? Maybe another day you can have much more information on STDs. Yeah, we could do that particular segment as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sally. So this is how we wrap it up for now. Again, thank you. We appreciate every single one of you for participating. For those of you who shared your personal experiences, we appreciate it so much, simply because it creates a learning environment for many others when you share your own experience, making it so much more valuable to those listening who might not have the courage to say, well, I'm going through this, or to even ask a question or ask for help that they might need. You sharing your experience allows them the benefit of gaining knowledge, gaining wisdom, gaining the help that they need. For those of you who may need assistance with counseling, you can reach out to us via email, and we will take it from there. Love and marriage tt at gmail.com. So that's LOVEAND marriage, 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 TT at gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to us via that email address, and we'll take it from there. Whether we need to meet in person, we can do it virtually, that kind of thing. We'll do our best to assist and work along with you. Or if we can't do it, we know quite a bit of counselors that we can also refer you to. Yeah. So feel free to don't suffer in silence. Don't allow your marriage to fall apart. If you're heading towards marriage and you want to ensure that you're both on the right foot and you're aligned correctly, let's help you get there. Yeah. So again, thank you. So on behalf of Mrs. Mahon and myself, we say ciao for now.
Love you much. Ladies,
gentlemen,
people, and all our single folk,
we've got something just for you.
Tours.
Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded is the place to be every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
with yours truly, Mr. and Mrs. Mahon. Join the conversation as we dive deep into the taboo topics around love, marriage, and relationships. Topics like sex and intimacy,
how to live and cleave,
money,
issues,
infidelity,
singles in the church,
and more. So join us every second and fourth Thursday from 9 p.m.
to 11 p.m.
right here on Sky 99.5 FM Reloaded.